What is going on, everyone? It's LFC Transfer Room here again after technical glitches. Misfired the debate. We struggled to get fans in the stadium, it seems, but we didn't pepper spray everybody. What we were able to do is just remake the stream and go live again. So if you had joined us and you put some things in the comments, we've had to start this all over again, but unlike the French authorities, everyone is safe, everyone is fine, and everyone is still ready to go. Today, we've got a bit of a special debate room where we have two people with opposing views on the LFC Transfer Room team. We've got Jack, the voice Edwards, who is very pro Salah, very pro keeping him. And then we've got Charlie, the OG Webb, who is of the different opinion. He thinks it's time for Salah to go. If he's not going to sign the contract, get out. We'll bring in someone that wants to be here. And what I'm going to do is moderate the chat, and then you, the viewers, are the jury. You will decide whether you're Team Charlie or Team Jack. Now, to do this as a moderation, to do this as a debate, as it should be, both of you will give opening statements about whether Salah should stay or whether he should go. And Jack, we're going to start with you.
This is the second try at it. No one else except for us three have seen our first try.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can do better because the first one wasn't great.
Whoa. And no, I can't even prove you're wrong because it's just I deleted it forever. All right, so yeah, I'm excited for the debate because Charlie and I have been back and forth on this for quite some time. I'm sure this won't settle the debate, but it should be pretty interesting to kind of hash it out pretty more in depthly. I guess the main tenet of my argument is that it is cheaper to keep a player than it is to sell him and buy a new one, just because of the massive amount of fees that are involved. Same within business. You have the idea that it is much more financially reasonable to retain an employee than it is to replace him. And the employee we're talking about isn't some run-of-the-mill average employee. It's the kind of employee that comes along once in a generation. It is a very, very unique talent that Liverpool have at their disposal. And with the loss of Sadio Mane, more funds have been freed up. More potential funds have been freed up. And I think it makes complete sense to retain, arguably, the greatest player in the world at the moment. I'll leave my opening argument there for Charlie to pounce upon.
Charlie, opening argument, please.
I mean, we're going to discuss it, but Mohamed Salah is definitely not one of the best players in the world this year anyway. Far from it. But I am obviously of the opposite. I think, look, no player is bigger than the club. We have had this issues for years. Luis Suarez, Fernando Torres, Felipe Coutinho, the list goes on and on. Sadio Mane is now joined that list, but he did it a bit more respectfully. You know, we can't be destroying our club. We are not run by billionaires. We are run by billionaires. We are not run by countries. We are not run by people who have unlimited funds. They can just go out and mine a bit of oil and sign, Calvin Phillips, Erling Hall, and Jack Grealish just for the fun of it. We are run by ourselves, and offering Salah 400 grand a week ruins all the hard work we have done under FSG, under Michael Edwards, of getting that wage structure. And if Salah wants to hold us ransom, then we can say, you know what, Salah, we've had players like you. You're still a Liverpool legend, but we will not be given into your crazy wage demands because, as I said, we are not run by a country and no one is bigger than the club.
So, no one bigger than the club. I think that's a start that everyone can agree on. The club will remain, players will come and go. However, wage structures are always broken. Look at what people were earning 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. The transfer record will be broken. Look at what City paid for Jack Grealish. It's utterly ridiculous. And then Shearer went for 18 million. So I'm going to ask you both this. In the Liverpool squad at the moment, who should you break the wage structure for? Who, if they came knocking on the door to say, I want a new contract and it's above the wage structure, would you sign it for?
How
Johnny, I'll
much?
start with you.
How much for above the wage structure? Are we going for the 400 grand that Mohamed Salah is asking for, reportedly?
Let's say 350.
350.
Let's
Okay,
split
well,
the difference
I
between
have,
I think we'd pay and what.
okay, I have always been under the opinion that if Mohamed Salah is willing to go to 300k, I think we give him a new contract. I think that is a good pedestal to then increase players' wages and give them what they deserve to a sense. Because as you said, money happens, inflation happens, players will earn more money, and it's just going to keep going up and up and up no matter what. I mean, Kylian Mbappe's on 800 grand a week now. Messi's on like something ridiculous, like 1.2 million a week at PSG. So it's always going to happen. The only player in the future I can see who genuinely breaks the wage structure and we set it as a pedestal is Trent Alexander-Arnold, especially if he keeps performing how he does. He's the only one who is young enough at the right age to have a couple of contracts ahead of him. Again, I don't think it'll be his next contract. I think that one could probably go like to 300k, which is a reasonable amount. And then his last contract where he wants a big one. And I understand that's the same situation with Salah. But Salah is asking for a ridiculous amount. He is asking for double his wages at currently. We do not work like that as a club. But at the moment, the only person I'm saying is Trent Alexander-Arnold. If Alisson is still at the same level in the next, 3-4 years or whenever his contract runs out, then Alisson as well. But currently, only Trent in my books.
My argument on the other end of things is that Salah is the perfect guy to break the wage structure for. And let me tell you why. Him and Virgil van Dijk are the only guys whose age and contract length will coincide with a need for a contract renewal in the near future. And Van Dijk actually goes to 25. So he doesn't necessarily need a major bump in terms of his contract because he'll be 33 years old when his next contract is done. So that won't be an issue with negotiations because letting a 33-year-old Van Dijk go is much different than letting Van Dijk go right now, unless he maintains the same level of performance. Salah wants a 3-year contract, according to reports. He also wants £400,000 a week. That would come out to around £62 million over the lifetime of that contract. It's expensive, and at 400 grand a week, that definitely pushes things up. But who's demanding a contract who should make that kind of money in that time? Fabinho's contract lasts for 5 more years. Trent Alexander-Arnold's contract goes for 3 more years. He may want to jump up to that level of pay. That would be the only issue that we would have is would Trent try and make £400,000 a week in his next contract rather than 2 contracts from now? That is the only issue that I foresee because you look at breaking this wage structure, they've timed the contracts, in my opinion, pretty perfectly. You're letting Firmino go when he's kind of beginning to regress in his powers. You still manage to get money out of Mane without having to give him the £360,000 a week he's reportedly making at Bayern. And so to give Salah £60 million, that is actually cheaper than just the upfront cost of Rafinha, a player who, mind you, is notably worse than Salah. So you can argue that Salah is not one of the best players in the world. And I won't lie to you. His recent form has been quite poor. But the phrase that I will always harp back to is class is permanent, form is temporary. I'm not revolutionizing this saying by any means, but in the last 6 years since Sadio Mane signed for Liverpool, only 2 players in Europe have more goals plus assists than Mohamed Salah. And those players are Robert Lewandowski and Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi is making 1.2 million euros a week. Robert Lewandowski is making 450,000 euros a week. For him to ask for money that is similar to Lewandowski but nowhere close to Messi, I think that's a fair trade-off for the caliber of player he's been for the last half decade, which has been best in Europe with those 2 other guys.
My main issue with that, obviously, you said that if he was to do, if we was, let's say, for instance, we give him the 400k once, you're going to go into the dressing room, you're going to see the likes of Virgil, you're going to see the likes of Ali, you're going to see the likes of Fabinho, even Manny to an extent, even though he's gone, they're going to be like, well, why have I just signed a new contract? I was trying to be respectful to the club. I understood the club structure. I understood how the club is run, business-wise. As I said before, we're not a country. We're not run by Saudi Arabia. they've been respectful to the club in their negotiations. Obviously, they all want to have a lot of money to retire with, because as we know, football it's a short career compared to a lot. But look, they're not short of money, are they? They're comfortable for the rest of their life. Their families are going to be comfortable for the rest of their life. Their kids are going to be comfortable for the rest of life, even with this money that they're earning. So, yes, to us, that's obviously a big jump. But to them, in the grand scheme of things, it is not a huge jump. But going back to my original point, it's, why what Virgil van Dijk, Alisson, if that happens, they're going to be like, well, why didn't I just be disrespectful and just push further for more money? I respected the club, but now the club are giving in. And they're going to be unhappy because if they would, maybe not disrespectful, it's the right word, but maybe if they were a bit more ruthless. Selfish, perfect word. Virgil van Dijk is the best centre-back in world football, one of the best centre-backs to ever play the game, according to the likes of Rio Ferdinand. Alisson Becker, literally the other day, is getting compared to the likes of Schmeichel, Van der Sar, and that is not an unfair comparison. If we want to give Salah 400k a week, then it's disrespectful for the other ones to say, oh, you guys are just signing a new contract, but even though you're the best player in the world in your position, who by the way, constantly perform all the time. Mohamed Salah, since he has come back from AFCON, has not looked asked. He just doesn't look bothered. And that's not an unpopular thing to say. I think a lot of people think that. But my issue is it disrupts the dressing room dynamic if you give him that amount of money.
All right, Charlie. So I want to talk a little bit about. I get your point. Salah's been off, hasn't he? He's had a dip of form, and we're talking about a player in Salah who doesn't get injured. You could sign a player 100k a week. They could get injured. You got to play someone else. You're bringing in more people. So if he's after a 3-year contract, he's what, 30, 31. Are you paying the most money for someone who is at the peak of their powers? Or is it better invested elsewhere? Now, I know both your answers already, but that's the framing of the question for you both to answer. And remember, if you're new to the channel, to like and subscribe. We do these types of things all the time. And you are the jury at this. At the end, we're going to ask you if you're Team Jack or Team Charlie, and you will make the decision. Jen gets 2 votes for the super sticker because why not? So that's the framing of the question to you both. Salah, is he going to be fit enough? Is he going to be in his prime enough to be commanding the biggest salary? And Jack, I'm going to start with you because Charlie finished off last time.
Yeah, I think it's 100% fair to expect the most of Salah for the next 3 years if you're going to pay him that kind of money. And if Liverpool offered him that contract, he was being paid that kind of wages, and he was dropping the performances in the second half of the season, I'd be joining Charlie in the why did we do this train. But I don't want to look at the last 6 months of a guy who played as many minutes of football as almost anybody else. So for the heartache of the World Cup, off of the back of one of the toughest seasons for Liverpool in recent memory, the 2020-2021 season, with COVID, all those impacts, and then falling so close in AFCON, there's no question that he was going to be derailed. And Liverpool decided not to rest him. And you could argue that's because Salah wants to play more. He wants to be getting in and out. Or he wants to be just play more football. And that could be almost a detriment for him not to get as much rest. But that's a discussion you have with Salah. For me, I don't know who you get for the next 3 years who you can be confident will produce as much as Salah will. And I would, again, point to the last 6 years as evidence. He's, I think, 6th or 7th in terms of overall goals in the league, in league play. And he's 3rd in goal contributions, only behind Messi and Lewandowski. And for me, that kind of past value in the bank, I weigh that very highly. I mean, a guy like, you look at like replacements. Jared Bowen got double-digit goals and assists last year. Did it in a less talented West Ham side. But I'm not trusting Jared Bowen to come in and score 20 goals next year. And that's what we're going to need to win the title. So for me, it makes 100% sense to pay players and get guys in their absolute prime. And the next 2 years, I think, will be Salah's prime. He may fall off a little bit in the third year after that, maybe part of the second year, but you're getting the best of Salah if you maintain him. And not only are you getting the best of Salah, you're getting the best of Salah happy because of the contract. By getting him what he wants, he's going to be playing well. And another factor for why his dip in form happened, that was also when the contract negotiations continued to develop noise and have become as loud as ever. Because people were saying, oh, he doesn't deserve this contract now. He does deserve this contract now. This has this looming weight over his head. Rest plus that being removed, and you're getting, I think you have the potential for the best player in the world. Any replacement, any other Liverpool player, I don't think you can really make the argument that they could be the best player in the world over the next 3 years. I think you can make that argument with Mohamed Salah.
Charlie, Jack keeps pushing the argument down that you can't, there's no replacement out there. No one else can do what Salah does. No one can match his figures. So whilst we're talking about obviously Salah and retention, and we know he's a supreme athlete and things like that, I'm going to put to you, who do you replace him with?
Absolutely anybody who Jurgen Klopp wants, because when Mohamed Salah came in, he was not this 32 goal a season player for Roma. He was a decent winger in that league, and Jurgen Klopp and Michael Edwards did this scouting, and the scouting team did the scouting they brought in, and there is no way they expected him to get that amount of goals. Why can't that happen again at Liverpool? We can't see the future at the end of the day. I know Jack was mentioning the injuries. I could walk out this room right now and break my ankle. Like Virgil van Dijk, before he had his cruciate ligament, he didn't have a serious injury. He had an ankle injury with Southampton, and he had his appendix removed. They were the main injuries. But he then got injured. Does because he got an injury, does that take down his whole negotiations about having 400 grand a week? No, but Salah can't see the future. Yes, he's had a good record of injuries, but for all we know, Jordan Pickford could go flying into him next season. He's out for a year, and now he's not the same player, and we're paying him 400 grand a week to drop performances like he did at the end of the season. But again, it's football. You have to take them risks. It's a part of life with football. But going back to the main point of who you do replace him with, I don't know, because if we go off the last 6 months of the season, anybody, because he was rubbish. Jarrod Bowen would be a great replacement for him, considering how they performed both during the end of the season. But if you're going off the first half, I don't know, because the dissimilarities of the first half and the latter half of the season are very worrying. How can you score so many goals in the first season and then just become a different player the last half of the season? Like, again, I understand where Jack's coming from. It's cheaper to just give Salah his contract, because you then have to go out and buy a player, probably more than 60 million. Then you'd have to give them the contract. But as we've saw with Darwin Núñez, yes, we've bought Darwin Núñez for 100 million, but he's just took a 6-year contract at 125 grand a week. He's a bang in the middle of the wage structure. It's a great, yes, we paid 100 mil, but you're not going to be paying him, like, as Jack said, so 60 mil over 3 years or whatever. But with what Salah's asking, he's obviously asking 60 mil. I think he only wants to stay 2 years as well, a 2-year extension, which why, if he's doing that, that is just a short-term solution still. Liverpool no doubt have scouts. They do all around the world. They no doubt have
breaking news. Yeah. Liverpool have scouts.
Yeah, they have a list of wingers that are ready to replace Mohamed Salah. They will have been watching these players for years. Cody Gakpo, Jarrod Bowen. There was a lot on that list that come out from the Athletic a couple of years ago. And look, if we need to maybe move them a year closer, so be it. They might not be close to the finished project already, but Jurgen Klopp doesn't sign finished articles. He never has. He never will. He always improves players. And he did that with Mohamed Salah. He did that with Sadio Mane. He did that with Diogo Jota. He's about to do that with Luis Diaz. He's about to do that with Darwin Núñez. You know, he didn't buy Roberto Firmino, but he made him the player he was. Lewandowski, Marco Reus. I can go on and on and on of all the players that Jurgen Klopp has made world class. And at the end of the day, whoever he wants to sign will replace Mohamed Salah. And if that is because Salah is being greedy and wants 400 grand a week, then in my opinion, see you later, mate. It is what it is.
I want to point on one point there, just right off of what Charlie said. How is it greedy to ask for 400 grand a week? Because you look at the other options in Europe, that's what the going rate is for guys who have the numbers like Mohamed Salah does.
It's greedy for being a Liverpool player.
Why should he take a pay cut to play
because
here?
That's how we're ran. You know, if he wants to go to Man City, look at the clubs that are paying these. Okay, look at the clubs that are paying the likes of 400 grand a week for players. Manchester City, yes, they're pretty good in the league, but with our wage structure, we're competing with them every year. Still rubbish in Europe. Real Madrid, ran by Spain pretty much, so not counting them. PSG, ran by a country, Qatar is one of them. Yeah. Manchester United, billions have been pumped into that club and look where they are. Chelsea, we're ran by Russia. Who else is paying 400 grand a week for players?
Juventus. They're paying to look 418 grand a week.
Okay,
They are.
Really?
He's the highest paid center back in the world.
Okay. Wow.
Well, they fix matches, so they don't count either.
Look, wow. Okay, I don't disagree that Liverpool don't pay 400 grand a week, but to call a player greedy for asking for the market value of his contract,
selfish.
It's not even selfish. Greedy. It's not even selfish.
For Liverpool, it is. We've just went over this. Why can't, if that happens? What's Virgil van Dijk on 220 grand a week? He's one of our highest earners, correct? Him and Thiago are around that.
It goes Van Dijk, Thiago, Salah, who are on the same 200 grand a week.
Yeah. So
and then Trent.
And they've just signed all new deals within the past year, and Thiago's obviously just signed. Look how the dynamics will change in that dressing room. If he gets 400 grand a week, there's no doubt the players will know how much he's on, and the players will feel hard done by. And Liverpool can't. They can't do that, in my opinion. It will ruin, it'll ruin a lot of things in the dressing room. Obviously, we don't know what happens in the dressing room, but we've heard ex-players talk about it, and they know this stuff. They keep it up with it just as much as us.
I just don't think that's not going to be my basis for it. If Jurgen Klopp, looking at the guys and in their eyes, says, I don't want to do this because I don't trust it to not make things awkward, that's a very, very fine, thing to do. And if that's the rationale, I don't disagree with that. I think that's fine. But I just don't think I cannot sit here and claim that Van Dijk, Thiago, Trent, and all of them are not professionals to recognize that they work with Salah week in, week out. They know he's one of the hardest workers in the world. They know how talented he is. His showing it on the pitch fell off massively in the second half of last season. But I don't think you can look at that and say, for instance, Lionel Messi, who had a very, very poor season for PSG after the move from Barcelona. Is he a poor player? No, he's still one of the best in the world, talent-wise. You pay for talent, not necessarily for exclusively what they just showed you. By your same logic, Liverpool signed Salah from Roma when he had gotten 15 goals, 11 assists, had shown quite good promise, but wasn't the guy he was at Liverpool. They signed him because of what he could be. We have a much better idea of what he is than we do of any other guy. And I think for Jurgen Klopp, who has 4 years left in his contract, it makes zero sense to downgrade at right wing. You can argue that Jared Bowen could replace him, but you are downgrading at right wing. Jared Bowen is less talented than Mohamed Salah, and I'm not going to hear otherwise.
You do not know that we will be downgrading. No,
Who is as talented as Salah? Who is as talented as Salah?
You can't say that we're downgrading because we can't see the future. How do you know Jared
How do you know
Bowen?
you've got to hit a Torres point is what you're saying?
Yeah, how do you know Jared Bowen won't come in and score 33 goals?
I don't, but you can't
exactly.
You can't say that you're more comfortable, more confident in betting your mortgage on Jared Bowen to score more than Salah. I'm just not gonna. I'm not gonna accept that as an argument.
After the last 6 months, if Jared Bowen stays at West Ham and Salah stays at Liverpool, going off the past 6 months, I think you can make a pretty good argument that they end up similar goal tally next season.
Similar, yeah. But the point I'm making is Bowen as talented as Salah? And he's nowhere near as talented as Salah. Not as good a dribbler, not as good a playmaker, nowhere near as good a finisher.
How old is he? 24?
He's 25. And 25. I agree, his potential is very high. But Jared Bowen should not be the replacement for Salah. We have 3 years left to Klopp. Giving him, or 4 years left to Klopp. If we give him even one more year of Salah, that's one better chance of a trophy than we have without Salah. My order of hierarchy is sign him to a new contract as soon as we can. If not, let him go on a free. And then miles below that, sell him right now. Because who are we buying that is an immediate downgrade? And it just does not make sense in my eyes to do that.
One really quickly about that 60 million, about obviously paying him 60 million. You know, let's say, for instance, we sell him. Mm-hmm. Sadio Mane's just fetch 40 million euros. Why can't Mohamed Salah fetch probably 20, 30 million? If obviously we're saying he's one of the best players in the world. So let's do a conservative offer of 60 million.
Yeah, that's what I had.
I think a club would pay that. So there's 60 million you're getting from him. You're also saving 60 million from transfers from his contract wages. Yeah, there's 120 million to go out and buy whatever attacker you want. Obviously not Mbappe. Jurgen Klopp with that money will buy somebody who can replace Mohamed Salah. I've got no doubt in my mind.
I know my job is to convince the audience to join me on my side, but I'm going to pick on Gary with this comment. Has to step up this season. No one stepped up more than Salah last season. No one got more goals. No one got more assists for Liverpool. So he does not need to step up. Other players need to step up to his quality.
No, he does. Frank. He does need to step up.
How
can you watch the past? You can look because look, when has Salah ever had a bad run of form like he has last month? Since he's joined Liverpool, he hasn't. So why all of a sudden, after 5 years with the club, is he now having a poor second half to the season, which spanned 6 months or whatever it did, or 5 months, I think it was. Why can't we be like, okay, maybe now he's reached this peak and he's fallen down. Maybe that's the life. Players reach their peaks at different years. Look, Fernando Torres left to Chelsea and he was never the same after that. He reached his peak with Liverpool. You can say the same about Felipe Coutinho. You can say the same about Roberto Firmino in that 17-18 season. Players reach their peaks at different ages. I don't think it is out of the question that Mohamed Salah reached his peak, and after AFCON, when everything went wrong, he has just thought, maybe I don't put as much effort in. I'm not in the mind of Salah, but maybe after that he's going back down the mountain. I don't think that's unlikely to say.
Salah isn't saying the things he's saying if he's not trying.
He's doing it to piss us all off, saying that he's going to win the Ballon d'Or and win the Champions League.
We have a score to settle. We are, all the things he's saying, they're not being said by a man who's not working his ass off. And I also want to bring up the point that in a single season, the last time he played as many national team games as he did in 2021 was in 2014 when he was 21 years old. He played 9 times for Egypt last year. He's played 8 times this year. He's played 51 times for Liverpool in the last 2 seasons. That's a lot of matches. And to have the goal output he has had, regardless of that amount of matches being played, is unbelievable. Show me a guy who plays as much as him.
Did he step up for Egypt?
He got them to their first World Cup ever in 2018. He nearly got them to the AFCON Cup final.
We're turning into Manchester United. Did he step up recently?
He got them to a final with a squad that was objectively inferior to Senegal's.
Did he step up when it mattered? In the big moments? Did he step up in the Champions League final? Did he step up when all these
Who did for Liverpool? Who did for Liverpool?
That's the point. He's saying he didn't step up. That's the point. No one did. But the point is, he's saying all this stuff like, we've got a score to settle with Real Madrid. I'm going to win the Ballon d'Or. I'm the best player in the world. I'm better than Benzema. all this rubbish with these coming out before the Champions League final, being an absolute idiot about it. And now forever we can go back and opposition fans are going to be like, oh, look at Salah saying that he's going to win the Champions League and drag Liverpool to the next Champions League title. And then he drops a 0 out of 10 against Real Madrid. He was rubbish in that game.
He was not rubbish. He was top. He was one of our 5 best performers. And that's not saying much for a guy who should be earning $400,000 a week. I agree. But to sit here and say that last season from Salah was poor.
I have never claimed last season from Salah was poor. I have always remained that after January, he was rubbish. Not just poor, he was rubbish.
Yeah, look at Salah when he was...
Whoa. Moderation plan.
Let's go to James.
It's time to switch your focus a little bit, guys.
All right.
I'm going to ask, and I'm going to start with you, Jack. What would make you want to sell Salah? And Charlie, what would make you want to keep him? And it can't be the obvious. Can't just be, oh, well, he's got to take a pay cut. What situation has to happen for him to change your mind? What has to happen for you to want to sell him? Jack, go.
So we're going with like what we know right now, not like I guarantee Jared Bowen gets 20 goals next season. That's not like
no. We can't guarantee anything about next season. But what has to happen? Because what we're saying at this moment in time, Jack, where we're at is he has to look his teammates in the eye and say, "I am double you. I am worth double you." If he was to get that $400K contract,
I think.
So what has to happen for you to think actually this is a step too far?
Yeah, I think it step too far, or what would have to happen to make you want to sell?
Go, get out.
I don't know, because I haven't interpreted what Salah's been doing as disrespectful as much as clearly Charlie and others have. I think if it does come out, and it's pretty verifiable, that he almost would view his teammates lesser. Or that it is a thing, rather than looking at his peers at other clubs, he's looking at his teammates. That's when I would be like, all right, maybe it's time for you to go. When he becomes a detriment to the locker room, and if his contract, should it be signed, would be a genuine downtick in team cohesion. Because I do think a Liverpool side that does not have Salah, but has a very good morale, very good, and no squad issues, is better than one with Salah, but with issues that stem from the contract. I'm not sure if that 100% meets what you were looking for, but I think if it did, go ahead, James.
Would you keep him at 450? If you wanted 450 a week, would you still give him it?
I would.
Would you give him 500?
I think I would, because at the same time, I think, let me do the math in my head. I'm actually going to pull it up, because I have a mathematical way of looking at it.
What is your break point to go, do you know what? We should invest in the future. Because at what point you go, okay, well, are you really treble the player of Virgil van Dijk?
So
are you quadruple worth this?
Yeah, it's $26 million a year at $500,000 a week, and it's what, 300 or 30 million a year at 600. Yeah, 31.2 million a year, which would be 91 million pounds. I think my breaking point would be $500,000 a week, because at that point, you're spending 75 million pounds plus bonuses, plus signing on fee, plus agent fees, so that you're pushing pretty close to 100 million pounds. At that point, that's multiple players. That's not one guy. Because at $400,000 a week, I'm very comfortable paying that, because that's not even enough for Rafinha. Versus you can get Rafinha and then not a few other players, but Rafinha and then activate the release clause of Gavi, for instance. So I would say $500K a week is probably as far as I would go. But and I don't think he's pushing that. So I think that's a bit of a hypothetical, obviously.
Still, it's an extra 20% on top, isn't it? So you don't think it's been outrageous. Charlie, what would make you think, do you know what? Pay it, keep him. If he starts this season like he started last?
The only way I would keep Salah, obviously without a wage reduction, if that's off the table.
Yeah. $400,000 is the fixed point.
See, I've always said my limit's 300, so I'll just put that out there. But if he can't have a wage reduction and he's on 400 grand a week. The only way I would sell Mohamed Salah is if we got bought out by someone stupidly rich.
As a club,
I'll leave it as that. Yeah, the club get bought out by, and I think FSG rejected a $3 billion bid from Asia's richest man a year or two ago. If he was to
come in, if Chelsea were 4.2 bill,
if Jeff Bezos come in, if Elon Musk come in, if I don't know what Middle Eastern country hasn't bought a football club, Kuwait maybe. If they bought one, if Kuwait's prince and king come in, then Mohamed Salah, you can have 600 grand a week. I don't care, because then it's money doesn't matter at that point. That's why, Manchester City are spending 100 mil on a bench player and probably another 60 mil on another bench player, and giving Erling Haaland's family 20 million each just because he grew up with them. Like that,
James,
that would be me. So
can I ask Charlie in the chat a question? I just want to bring one thing up.
Go for it.
All right, so it's coming from Halor. All other players, when they demand more money after they give Salah a new contract, why is this a bad thing?
Because we not run like that. It's not sustainable.
I don't believe it's not sustainable. We're outpaid by Manchester City and Manchester United. City, okay, I'll accept that they have funding from the owners that we don't have. United, though, their owners actively remove from the club. They don't add to the club. For them to be able to spend more on players, they spend it poorly, but they spend more on players and still make the money that gives the owners their greed. That doesn't make sense to me. And so I say, then who is going to ask for more money? And then we have an awkward situation, because Van Dijk's contract situation is fine. Thiago's is likely fine. Fabinho's is likely fine. Alisson's contract runs out in 2027. He's got 5 years left on his deal. We're not dealing with him for a while. So I just wonder who is going. And from the converse perspective, look at players who want to join Liverpool. If you are saying to Salah, we're not going to pay you 400 grand a week, 250 grand is the cap for our players, you'll look at them and say, okay, should I sign for Liverpool? But they're a stepping stone for me, basically, because I want to make that kind of money, but they're not going to pay it for me. Say I like Klopp a lot. I want to join Liverpool, but I also value the finances like everybody else does. But I can't make that at Liverpool. I can make that elsewhere. Because
we do not want to be a club like Manchester United that people want to sign for money. If that ever happened at Liverpool, it would blow up. The only players who deserve to be paid high from the get-go is if somebody who is world class, the best one or two players in the position. Thiago, when he come in, he come in as a top earner, fair enough. Darwin Núñez, though, not the best player in the position. Yes, we signed him for a lot of money, come in as a middle ground. Why do we want to be like Manchester United? Manchester United are about to bring in Frankie de Jong, who has been rubbish for Barcelona. No one wants him. They actively want to sell him, and he's going to come in as probably the second highest earner. When Liverpool gets to that, it's downhill for us.
Right. I'm stop you there, Charlie, because I think you're moving into the final part, and make sure we're going to give you the option in the chat. You're going to be the jury on this, whether you're Team Jack or Team Charlie. Jack is obviously keep Salah. Team Charlie is sell Salah. But we're now moving into closing statements, Charlie.
I would just like to say really quickly, I've put a poll out on the actual channel on the live chat. It's been out from the beginning. I've put, should we sell Salah? Currently, yes is at 48% and no is at 52%. Oh. And there's been 60 votes.
Oh.
So the poll will decide it, and it all comes down to this, Jack. It all comes down to closing statements. Mm-hmm. And because you opened, you get to finish on the close. Charlie, closing statements, please.
Look, I'm not going to have this run as long as the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, for if anyone watched that. But it's as simple as this. No player is as big as the club. The badge on the front is bigger than the name on the back. That is always how it will be. Mohamed Salah, again, I've went over this, but Luis Suarez, Felipe Coutinho, Fernando Torres. The list is endless. There's been loads of players. We do not need to spend stupid money to have good players. That if Mohamed Salah wants to sign for the club that he supposedly loves, then go to 300 grand a week. That's reasonable. Does an extra 100 grand a week really affect somebody who was already a multi-millionaire? If you want that type of money, go to PSG, go to even Manchester United, who are going to pay you ridiculous wages. Another thing is, how do we know he isn't at his peak? We don't know that. As much as next season he could go and score 1 million goals for all I know. But he could also continue the form that we know he is on. It's not like he's coming off this season. The last 5 games he's scored, 8 goals in 5 games, but before that he was rubbish. He's just been terrible. I think he scored 7 goals in 14 games, and I think half of them were penalty goals. So he's only scored 4 goals. I don't know the exact number. I think it is 4 though. He's only scored 4 non-penalty goals since he returned from AFCON in January. If you want to pay 400 grand a week for that, it's ridiculous. Yes, we can go off his previous form, and that has to be taken into consideration. I don't disagree with that, but you have to take his current form into consideration more than his previous form, because at the end of the day, we are paying that. A perfect example, Aubameyang, Golden Boot winner. Arsenal, he was pushing them for a new contract. They ended up paying him over 300 grand a week. Then look what happened. 6 months later, he was one of their worst players, and he forced to move to Barcelona. And if I'm not wrong, I think Arsenal are still paying part of his wages because Barcelona were refusing to pay it. So if that wants to if people want that, we are ran by ourselves. We are ran within Liverpool. The money we make goes back into the club. The only time we loan money from FSG is for the likes of stadium expansion, training centre expansion. Apart from that, it's all in-house, and we give them that money back from within the club. Unless we get a billionaire, a multi-billionaire who is stupidly rich, who is the king of a country or the richest man in the world, Mohamed Salah should not be on 400 grand a week. It's not sustainable for a club of like Liverpool, how it's run. You can argue all day if FSG should be the owners. I would love to be run by rich people who want to just shove money into the club. But unfortunately, that's not how we are. So that's my roundup opinion of it. I think, if you want Salah to stay, fair enough. But my opinion is, I think we should look to the future. We should try and find another gem, another diamond in the rough, hopefully like we have done with Darwin Núñez, and we cash in on Mohamed Salah and say thank you for an amazing 5 years. You will always be considered a Liverpool legend, but it's time to say goodbye.
So it's a big closing statement, Jack. Are you ready?
I am. Yeah, I was kind of writing down.
1% in the vote on the channel at the moment, so you've got some work to do.
So, okay. I want to start with the first point that Charlie made, and that was that no player is bigger than the club. He's not wrong. I mean, this badge right here, that's what it is. It's not that. It's not the old sponsor. It's the club. But look at where the club was when Klopp joined. Look where the club was when FSG joined. The club has constantly been evolving. It's constantly been growing. In 2019-2020, the last time that we've had real public knowledge and acknowledgement towards the revenues of clubs, Liverpool were second most in terms of revenue in Europe, or excuse me, in England, at $627 million, just behind Manchester City, who had $24 million more made. And yet, both them and Manchester United spend more on salaries than we do. Salah's contract demands are befitting of a player of his talent and of a club that is aiming to not only contend for every trophy, but contain the best players in the world. The best players in the world are oftentimes contained at clubs like PSG, Barcelona, Real Madrid. I mean, look at what PSG are paying players. They're paying players 3 times what Salah's asking for. And if he wants the money, he can go to PSG and join a soulless club. If he wants to play for a club that really means something, he can play for Liverpool. And if Liverpool want to kind of leverage that value of playing for a club with heritage, with tradition, that has fans that love them, how is it any more financially acceptable for Liverpool to underpay their players based on that, but for Salah to ask for more? I think that for you to look at the last 6 months from Mohamed Salah, even if you don't take into context the amount of matches he played, the emotional aspect of things, the burnout that he was likely suffering from, and you take the last 6 months and you ignore the last 6 years where he was only bested by Lewandowski, Robert Lewandowski, and Lionel Messi in terms of goal contributions in the league, he's a third in Europe. He could be asking for more money, and I wouldn't really kind of hate it completely. I think 400 grand a week is acceptable for a guy of his talent. At his age, we're getting him in his absolute prime. Players don't drop off at the age of 30. Look at who just beat us in the Champions League final. It was led by Karim Benzema with a midfield that had guys that maybe they should be on the Jurgen Klopp asthmatic train because they're getting quite old on in age. And yet they had the experience. They had the knowledge. They knew what it takes to win trophies. Salah's in that boat. I think maintaining him and his contract is the most important thing. And the last point I'll make is the discussion on locker room dynamics and, you know, players coming to ask for a contract. Who deserves and who has a better argument for this than Mohamed Salah? Maybe Trent Alexander-Arnold, but he's a Scouser. He's born and bred Liverpool. He would go for £0 a week because he loves the club that much. But he's not going to ask for that because he also is the best right back in the world and soon to be one of the best players in the world. We should set a precedent that we value our talent that we have developed. Salah's rise to this spot is not only based on Jurgen Klopp. People say Jurgen Klopp makes players. That's just dumb. That does not take into account the struggles Mohamed Salah dealt with in his childhood that led him to be the player he was at 24 when Liverpool signed him. He worked hard for 24 years to become a footballer, and he's worked even harder in the Liverpool system to become one of the best players, if not the best player in the world at one time. So to value that, to value the time he's given for Liverpool, I think you give him that contract. At the end of the day, beyond Salah and how much I love him, how much I think he's talented, I trust Jurgen Klopp. If he decides that he trusts other players, he wants to make another signing, I can't really dispute that because I'm just going off of my opinion. I'm not going to disagree with the big man. But at the end of the day, I think you're hard-pressed to find a better player than Salah in the world that you could buy that could replace it. And with 4 years left of arguably our greatest ever manager, I don't think we're in a spot to be giving up that great talent. So that's the end of my argument. Back to you, James.
Thank you very much, both. Now, the poll is open, and we're going to keep the poll open for the next couple of minutes. And whilst the poll's open for the next couple of minutes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at some of the chat that you guys have been putting in there, which is, you know, knick-knack, nah, Charlie talking nonsense, Jack talking nonsense, and then we've got Charlie talking nonsense.
Plank,
you know, he's won everything. Mane wants a new challenge. You know, there's a lot of comments. People are split on this. This does look to be quite a bad thing, and I do think there's been a bit of influence going on during the discussion. We've seen the poll go back and forth 2 ways, but you know, if Trent wants 400 grand a week when his new contract comes up, do you give him it?
No, because he's not selfish like Salah.
But if he asks for it,
if he wants it.
If he wants it, I think he'd go there. Yeah, I think you break away. I said you break the wage structure for Trent. You can go back on the video. He was the one player I said you break the wage structure for.
But yeah,
I think Trent is different. You know, you look at another one I want to bring up here from Gumbean Hunter. This is gonna go on all season. It's gonna be in the background of absolutely everything. And you know, as much as we didn't want it to go on in the background during the Champions League final and the last couple of games of the Premier League, it did. You know, that's all people have been talking about. We're sick and tired of talking about it on this channel, but you know, it's content. I want to
mention. I think, at least from my perspective, I think the contract talk is much louder when he's playing poorly versus when he's playing well. Think about the first half of the season when he was killing it. It was FSG, pay him the money. Give him the money he wants. We want to keep him here longer. And then once he's been bad, it's why does he want so much money? Just sign a new contract. So it kind of turned from positivity around behind the team, because it's much easier to hate the owners and love the team than it is to kind of hate one of the players and back the owners. That doesn't really help the team atmosphere. So I think,
when does anyone ever back the owners apart from Chelsea?
I think they're like such a weird case study where they like actually like their owners. Like I think everybody else. Okay, City. I mean, they can't really hate their owners. They made them who they are. But like
Newcastle as well.
Well, they could hate them for ethical reasons. I would hope they do. But also, like,
you should see Twitter Monday. They're defending everything now.
Yeah.
Last 2 minutes. Once it hits 50 minutes, that poll is closed. So if you've not voted on whether we should sell Salah, get it in now, and we'll crown a winner. There's a few more votes coming in. It's starting to swing.
Is this a bad or good thing for me?
Jack's going on all his accounts now.
I'm literally going onto my other account to go vote on the thing. Here, wait, let's go to YouTube.
Jack just sets up a little turbine farm.
It's going to be one vote. Don't worry. It's not going to be like multiple. Unless I'm losing badly, then I may need to make multiple.
No. It's less than 5% in it.
Oh, wait, no.
It closed in a couple of minutes. Now,
wait, where is this? Sorry.
It's on the Twitter.
It's on the chat. On the chat of the stream.
Okay, sweet.
Now,
I thought it was on
that's happened whilst we've been going live and been announced is Calvin Phillips, Man City, defensive midfield, a long-term replacement for Fernandinho. Unfortunately, I think it's a good signing.
I agree to an extent.
Hey, Charlie, I just want to mention you voted yes on the LFC transfer room account. That's some naughty behavior from you on the poll. That's some naughty behavior.
No. You can't vote on the LFC transfer room account.
Look at the transfer room account. It's got yes selected.
It doesn't.
I promise you.
Nothing. So literally, if you create a poll from the LFC transfer room account, you can't vote on it. It just opens it automatically.
Oh.
I did vote on my account though. I won't lie. But
Jack will be setting up polls later, won't he?
Yeah. Look, it's the deal. I think it's a good deal considering they were saying 60 million. You've ended up getting him for 42 million. Does he tick all the boxes for a Pep Guardiola player? I don't think so. Do I think he's a great Fernandinho replacement? Absolutely not. He's a completely different player to Fernandinho. Yeah. But if they change tactics and they play around and maybe they play him a bit more advanced, who knows? But saying that again, Leeds haven't really played him more advanced. So
yeah,
it's a weird one. But if you told me you're getting rid of Gabriel Jesus to bring in Calvin Phillips, I think that's a good deal.
I think for me,
it's done.
I'm mentioning Calvin Phillips just really quick. Oh, I think Charlie's won, hasn't he?
Fortunately, we should sell Mohamed Salah. 53% of the vote going that way. I mean, if it was democracy, does that call for a revote when it's within 5%? But
it does. There will be
in this debate. We're giving it to Charlie. FSG, get him sold.
End it before anyone else votes.
Or let his contract run out and then sign Nkunku 51 million release clause and replace him that way.
Hey, dude, if we do that, okay, here's the thing. Like I said, my order of priorities is sign him to a new contract, let him go on a free, sell him. If we did the second option, we won a few trophies next year, and then signed Nkunku, I'm not complaining. That I think everyone wins there. We get some trophies, some more out of Salah. He makes absolutely boatloads at another club and adds more to his legacy. I'm not hating that. I just don't like the idea of selling him immediately. And maybe I should have harped more on selling him because I was more so on just the re-sign him. Because I think if we sell him, we step too far back in terms of our immediate goals. But Charlie, I think you debated very well. I think that I don't know who would have. I think we would have been interesting if we had a poll before, and we saw people's opinions before and then after. If anybody changed their mind, but I mean, it's the internet. That doesn't really happen. So,
the guy who does debate in school, all through.
No, we don't even have debates in the UK.
All you do is kick around a tennis ball on a concrete pitch.
That's all we do. Scrape on my knees.
Unfortunately, Jack, you're 1-0 down on this. I'm sure there'll be another opportunity for you to take on Charlie soon. But this has been keep or sell Mohamed Salah. This has been Charlie against Jack. It is now 1-0 Charlie. We've got another season for Jack to pull back the score. Thank you, everyone, for joining and got involved in the chat. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.